Anyone that was here earlier may or may not have seen me demonstrating some of Stagg's cymbals. Now I'm going to show you some of their guitars. Equally good, amazing instruments. For anyone that doesn't know me, you probably don't, my name's James Chapman. I'm a UK-based session musician. So I mainly work in recording studios, but I do a lot of professional work and I demo Stagg's cymbals a lot. So today, like I said, I'm going to show you their guitars. Now before I get into playing them, just want to quickly let you know a little bit about them. Stagg as a company is less than 20 years old, so I know a lot of people might already have heard of Stagg and people might think that they're not really professional level things, but a lot of, you know, the kind of reputation of Stagg is based around the fact that when people have tried their instruments in the past, it's been when the company was very young and starting out, so they might not necessarily have tried the later models where they've developed much better ways of making the instruments. These guitars in particular are no longer made, and this is quite recent, they're no longer made where older Stagg guitars were made. They're made in a different factory. And it's no secret that all the big guys like Ibanez, Jackson, ESP, they don't make their own guitars until they start getting into really, really high-priced guitars. They outsource them from another factory and they get them made there and send people over to show them how to make them. Now lots of brands are made within the same factory. Stagg is one of those. So the newer Stagg guitars are actually made where some quite expensive, you know, top name brands are made. So you're getting the same guitars made by the same people in the same factory at a fraction of the price. And once you get it, you plug it into a good sounding amp, they sound amazing. Now for today's demo, I'm doing everything through an iPad. I didn't want to plug it into a big stack because it would be easy if I had like a PV5150 to make everything sound meaty. But what I want to do is show you how good the guitars themselves sound by running it through software instead of a big valve amp. So yeah, I'm going to play a song and then you can have a listen to how it sounds. Thank you. Got a start here. So, you know, that kind of song would not be possible to play on, you know, like a budget range guitar that doesn't play very well. There's too much going on in the riffs. The lead work is too fast. You know, doing like a kind of run. You just couldn't do that on a guitar that was set up poorly with like action up there really high. And the pickups as well. You know, the pickups really pick up what you're playing. They're really detailed. They've got lots of definition in the low end for picks up. So everything gets clear. Even when I'm using a stupidly heavy tone like that, you know, like, there's still definition. So it all remains clear, but you've got that kind of aggression that you need with the high gain sort of stuff. So what I'll do quickly is just kind of talk you through some of the guitars that we've got up here. So this one is the Ozin model, and this is from the Heavy series of guitars. There's 3 guitars in the Heavy series. There's this one, the Explorer kind of looking one over there, and then there's like a Rhodes type V as well, which isn't up here. Then we've got the traditional series, which is the Strat type guitar there, and the Telecaster type up here. And then we've got the L series, which are the Les Paul type there and there. And there's like a Les Paul Junior for anyone that can't see it. It's got like P90 pickups. It's a much more stripped down version. So I'll get onto that one in a minute. So if we take the guitar that I was using then, spec-wise is really, really good, and it's a much better improvement on previous Stagg guitars. We've got a new bone nut. Now what that is it's plastic, but it's got qualities of like when you get a bone nut, so you've got all that added kind of extra from bone. But my personal experience using bone, aside from the fact that you have to constantly adjust it because it's a natural material so it changes with temperature, once you go too far, as soon as the temperature changes again, you've maybe filed it down too low or something like that. It's a great sounding nut if you get bone, but it's very inconsistent and unreliable. Plastic, on the other hand, it's very, very reliable and it's very consistent, but it doesn't sound that good. So Stagg have come up with this new bone nut, which is like a cross between the two, so you get the best qualities of both. It's got a 22 fret neck with a rosewood fretboard. All the rosewood on these Stagg guitars are really nice quality rosewood as well. It's very dark, not quite ebony dark, but it's got a much snappier sort of tone. I find that when I'm in the studio, if I'm playing down-tuned stuff, I mean everything today is in normal tuning or drop D, but when I'm in the studio, this particular song that I'm playing now was written on a 7-string. So it's actually played in drop A, so I go a whole string lower when I tune this, and it handles it really well. It's got a maple neck under the rosewood fretboard. It's the bolt-on neck, but it's got a really nice profile. It's not in any way, you know, bulky or hard to hold. So when you're playing up on the high notes, it's very easy to get up there. It's got the same sort of profile as when you get like a neck through, but bolt-on. We've got 2 humbucker pickups, a solid older body with a carved top, which helps keep the weight down and obviously helps with the comfort when you're playing it. We've got a tone control and a volume control, and a 3-way pickup selector. Tune-o-matic bridge, and it's strung through the body. And that's really, really important, especially when you're on a rock guitar like this, because a lot of rock guitars have like Floyd Roses or double locking trems, and you lose all sustain. And to be honest, when you're doing like mega solos, you want as much sustain as you can get out of it. So having that strung through there really, really, really helps. The tune-o-matic bridge is brilliant because obviously when you're playing heavy stuff, you're constantly shifting between tunings. And it does it really well, stays in tune, no problems with it. So tune-o-matic is really kind of the way to go, especially as people start playing heavier and heavier and you get 7 strings and 8 strings and things like that. Everyone's tuning low, so you want to be able to have a bridge that can hold that. So You've already heard it, but just a couple of riffs to hear the guitar again. A little bit of kind of lead stuff so you get an idea. As I said, one of the things that I like about this guitar is the amount of sustain that you get out of it. No, it just sings, it keeps on going and going and going. And that's true when you do like, you know, these things can soften up as well because of the clarity of the pickups. It's not just good for metal, you can get everything out of it. And again, it's got all that sustain. I've got loads of noise gates on this as well to stop that. So, you know, even with a couple of noise gates, I'm getting loads and loads and loads of sustain, loads of tone. And the clean tone of these guitars is really nice as well. If I give like a kind of wet modulated, take away the effects so you can hear it. So, it cleans up well, and obviously this kind of guitar is not necessarily meant for that type of music. No one's going to buy like an Explorer and want to play funk and jazz on it. But if you're buying a guitar, and especially if you're buying one in this price range, you haven't necessarily got the money to go out and buy 12 guitars. So it's important that the one guitar you do have can do everything. And that, from this guitar, definitely does it. So let's move on to some of the other guitars and have a look at what they do. Okay, this is probably my favourite guitar that Stagg make actually. I got one sent through to demo for YouTube, and as soon as they sent it to me I bought one. They're absolutely amazing. If you like this style of guitar, and we all know what it is, then it's probably the best one you can get in the price. In fact, it definitely is the best one you can get within this price range. It's got a set neck this time, which is exactly what you want out of this kind of guitar. It gets you big, fat, warm tones with lots of sustain. It's got a mahogany neck and a mahogany body. Again, exactly what you want out of this type of guitar. It's got Cluson style machine heads. Again, it's got a new bone nut, which is the best of both. 22 fret rosewood fretboard. The neck profile as well is really, really good on these guitars. It's very round, it's very comfortable if you're doing your chord and rhythm type work. But the kind of radius on the fretboard is flat enough that when you're doing all the lead stuff, it doesn't become difficult. We've got 2 humbuckers, 2 tone and 2 volume controls, 3-way pickup selector, tunematic bridge and stop bar tailpiece. Now, as I said, this is probably my favourite guitar from Stagg. And I'm not even necessarily into these kind of guitars that much. But the quality when you play this guitar, that's the thing that really, really kind of leaps out at you. It's not just a case of it sounds good, it feels good, but you can feel how much quality there is in this guitar. The tone is great. So it's much fuller, more rich than those kind of guitars which are meant for the aggressive style. And they sound good clean, so this sounds great. You push it into a bit of dirt, the pickups are really nice and hot. Or you can play soft. So they're really dynamic, you know, you can dig in and get the kind of crunch, or you can play soft and mellow. You know, they're even good for kind of jazz tones, which obviously this type of guitar was intended for. And I'm warning you, I'm not a jazz guitarist. but it does all that kind of stuff really well. It really sings. Obviously, you can tell looking at me, I'm more of a rock guy. This guitar does that really well. The sustain is amazing. We'll be here all day if I show you that. So, it really breaks up nicely. And it does all the kind of classic tones that you want out of this type of guitar. So, it really sounds good, and it feels even better. It's one of those guitars that when you play it, even if you don't like this type of guitar, you kind of think, why did I never own one of these before? That's definitely what it was like for me. And as I said, it can do heavy, really heavy. It can do all the kind of shred stuff that you might want out of this guitar. It just does everything. You know, there is not a single style of music I could want to play and not be able to do on this guitar. It really is incredible. And as I said, mahogany back, it's actually got a maple carved top on there, which is good because it helps some of the brightness come through. Some of these guitars can tend to sound a bit muddy because of all the mahogany, but the maple top helps the kind of brightness shine. So you get a really well-rounded instrument. So moving on to the next guitar. Okay, this is the T-type. Now, this one I actually think is quite special because what it shows to me is that Stagg are not just thinking, well, let's make some cheap guitars so that people can afford to buy them and we'll sell bucket loads of them. What they're doing is they're putting thought into the instruments that they're making. So, with this one, what's different about it obviously is in this type of guitar, the neck pickup is normally very different. You've normally got that tiny little silver thing that personally I hate. Now, Telecasters sound great, but it's not my kind of sound. What I like about this is I can get that Telecaster sound if I need it, but I can get more of the sound that I like as well. So, just go through the specs again of this one. We've got die-cast machine heads, a maple neck, alder body, rosewood 22 fret fretboard, new bone nut, of course, the vintage T-type bridge, one tone, one volume control, and the typical sideways three-way selector. Now, as I've said, we've got a normal single coil in the bridge, which is typical of this kind of guitar. But then, when you get to the neck, we've got a P90, which makes it warmer, a bit more aggressive as well than a normal telly. Now that's not normally a tone that tellies are known for. But if you go into the middle position, you get this really great blend of the two. So you've got single coil and P90. Now unless you've got a guitar that's got both of these types of pickups, you're never going to get this tone. You've got the fatness and the richness of the P90, the bite and the kind of sharpness of a single coil. So it really does everything. And for the crunch tones, that's where I really like this pickup combination. Now, as I've said, this shows that Stagg aren't just knocking out guitars as quickly as they can, as cheaply as they can. They are thinking about the instruments, and they are thinking, what can we do to put out a really good guitar? And that's why I like what they've done here, because it shows that. They could have just followed what everyone else does and put the typical telly type pickup here, but they haven't. Do really heavy stuff, but with a P90 that warms that out as well. What I really like about this guitar. It does all those kind of, the tones that for me, I don't use a lot, but I kind of need to be able to get. It's got the crunch, and you know, you can get that Strat-like clean from that single coil pickup. If you like that kind of tone, then you can get that. You can get the fat kind of P90 sound. It's a lot richer, and then you get the cross between. That to me is what this guitar does well. Okay, so I'm sure everyone recognises this shape of guitar, if I can get around me. Now, this is cool because what I like about these guitars is the thickness of the tone because of the hugeness of the body. There's no way you can bolt this much wood onto a guitar and make it sound thin. So they've kind of taken advantage of that. It's actually really nicely balanced. A lot of explorers, when I've played them before, they go like this, or they try and compensate for the weight and put it all on the end, and then they go like this. And there's nothing worse than playing a song, by the end of it, you're on the floor. So, this guitar, you know, they've put thought into it. I haven't tuned it. This is cool as well, Stagg tuner, little clip-on tuner. Does it really nicely. With me. I'll just do the first couple and I'll show you some riffs rather than lead. I do. Okay. So as I've said, this is a really beefy sounding guitar. Now, obviously, if you buy this, there's a good chance you like Metallica. So does all that kind of stuff really, really, really well, depending on what sort of song you like. Really is harp, yeah? Okay, so all of that is good, and I've just noticed I was on the middle pickup, so that's that without the bridge. That's better. So this guitar, you know, has no trouble with kind of beefy stuff, whether you're into that sort of stuff, or even just classic, you know. None of it's a problem with this. It handles everything well. Its lead tones are just as good as all the others, you know, and the access as well. This is one thing that's really nice. For this type of guitar, normally you go like, and then you're stuck and you can't get up here. And that's when you're tapping everything. But with this, you've got loads of access to the upper frets really, really easily. In terms of the specs, it's very similar to the others. We've got die-cast machine heads, new bone nut, maple neck, 22 fret rosewood fretboard, solid older body, but with this much of it, you get a big tone. 2 humbucker pickups, volume and tone control, 3-way pickup selector, tunematic bridge, and stop bar tailpiece. Now that's the only difference between this and the Ultra model and the V, which is called the Ozone model of the Heavy series. Those two have both strung through the bodies. This one has a stop bar tailpiece. But on this guitar, you don't necessarily need the string through because there is so much body, you're getting all the sustain and the tone out of that. What I'll do is play you another song and you can hear them properly again. I might play it on this one because I like this. Okay, so this should be pretty good proof of how playable. Sorry. It should be pretty good proof of how playable this kind of guitar is, because I'm going to be doing a kind of similar to before melodic death metal, and this one's really riffy. It's hard to play. So on a typical guitar of this type, or a guitar that doesn't play that well, this song wouldn't be possible. Thank you. Okay, so for anyone that's interested in the Stagg guitars, if you go on Session Drummer James on YouTube, then I've done some demos on there where you can hear them properly with music and stuff like that. Check out the other guitars, they're really good. We've got the Les Paul Jr. with the P90 pickups. The Strat is just fantastic with the maple fretboard, really, really good. Go over, play the guitars, check them out over where all the Stagg guitars are. It's directly opposite this hall. And does anyone have any questions about anything? Meaning of life? Anything? No? Okay, thank you very much. I'm James Chapman.